Hi, we're here at LeConner at the Quilt and Textile Museum with the Executive Director, Liz Thieker.
Hi.
Thanks for being letting us come and visit you today.
Absolutely, thank you for coming.
Could you tell us a little bit about this beautiful mansion that we're in?
Yes, the mansion was built in 1891 by George and Louisa Gaches, and they were some of the earliest people to come to LeConner. They came here from England, and at the time this was the most grand house in LeConner and remains so even 113 years later. It has served many functions since the time it was built. It's been a private residence. It was also the first hospital in Skagit County, which a lot of people don't know. And it was an apartment building for most of the last century. In 1973, there was a very bad fire here, and the house was almost lost. And some people got together in LeConner, and they called themselves LeConner Landmarks, and they succeeded in raising money to have the house restored. There were 4 original coal-burning fireplaces in the mansion. 3 of them remain, although they're no longer used, of course, with the quilts and textiles here. But you can see the beautiful Italian-made ceramic tiles, that they are original to the house. During the fire in the 1970s, these doors had been put in the basement and they were saved from the water and fire damage, and we were able to bring them back up and have them refinished. They have the original hardware on them, and the details are just beautiful. After the fire, there was little left in the way of original furnishings that looked like the Victorian era decor. And that was another way that the community really rallied around the preservation and the restoration of this house, is they donated things like the piano and the chandeliers and actually most of the furnishings you see. If you look up at the rosette on the ceiling, it is a cast of one of the original rosettes that would have belonged to the house. In the 1973 fire, most of the rosettes were destroyed save for one, and a really wonderful woman took that remaining rosette and made plaster casts of them so that we were able to replace all of them within the mansion. An example of one of the furnishings that were donated in the 1970s is this Chickering piano. And behind it you can see an example from our permanent collection of one of the more historic quilts. This is an 1860 hand applique quilt. So the border that is up around the ceiling in the entry foyer was made in England in the early 1900s, and it was donated in the 70s during the restoration by Seattle's Museum of History and Industry. It is hand printed, it has gold leaf, and it is just a wonderful addition to the decor of this Victorian mansion. On the left here you see the servants' staircase. This was a characteristic of a Victorian home in this era of this size. And on the right would have been the main family staircase, which you can see is wider and a little more ornate.
I'm Kathleen Koch. I'm the curator here at the museum. And I just want to tell you a little bit about the little quilts that we have on display right now. From time to time, we do have donated quilts. These are part of a tulip challenge done by the Camino Island Quilters. It just shows our more contemporary style of quilts that we have here. This quilt here with the little applique daffodils and tulip, it's a technique called 3-dimensional applique. So you're actually bringing out the quilt out into that 3rd dimension rather than just having a flat surface. This quilt is made with batik fabrics. It is machine pieced, and the maker of this particular quilt has hand quilted around all the little elements of the quilt. This quilt was made by Sharon Baker. It's a pattern she designed to use blocks. This quilt is one made by Elaine Bowles. It is made with silks, and the pieces have wonderful sashiko quilting on them. It's done with a heavier thread so that the quilting becomes a little more emphasized. It's a Japanese style. This is one of the kimonos made and designed by Sharon Baker. Her pieces are all original works. This was one that she made based on a smaller version that she did for a friend who was sick. Okay, this is another quilt by Elaine Bowles. The pattern that she has called this is Urban Logs. It is based on a traditional log cabin style quilt, but she has added her own unique twist by skewing some of the pieces and adding sashing. This piece is also hand quilted. This piece is by Sharon Baker. It is called Circles, Cycles, and Echoes in Space. She has used different quilting techniques here. One, a prairie point. Another one is called a yo-yo. It is the little circles that you see. This piece is made by Elaine Bowles. It is called City of Trees. It is representative of Boise. She has used different elements of a log cabin style. In the main body background, you'll see it in a very pastel. Around the outside borders, used a folded log cabin style. And then she has added metal shims into which she has pressed different symbols. You'll see water and fish and ducks and leaves and apples, just different elements that you might see around the Boise area. This group of people are from the Washington, D.C. area. They decided on a theme challenge. This is the hardware exhibit, and it is their interpretation of hardware. These tools wrapped in orange you see are actually made of felt, and it adds definitely a three-dimensional quality. This piece that you see now has hand-pleated fabric, and also the little decorative items on the edges are electrical fittings for wires. Window screening, so it's very different material for a quilter to use.
And this piece has been a favorite with a lot of the husbands that accompany their spouses through the museum. We often find that, you know, when a couple comes through, the men seem to be very interested in the house, and the wives seem to be very interested in the quilts, but these have been a favorite for all viewers.
And so the tools themselves are applique-on, or are they machine stitches?
They're machine stitched first, and then they're applique to the screening.
This is the tower room, or turret room, on the 3rd floor of the Gaches Mansion. This room was destroyed in 1973 when the house suffered a devastating fire. So when it was rebuilt, the Landmarks organization, the nonprofit organization that restored the building, went a step further and had a mural painted all around the ceilings. The mural was done by Craig Bartlett. The painting depicts the view looking out each window. In fact, if you look to the northeast, you can see Mount Baker, and you can also see Mount Baker up on the mural just above that window.